the first question I want to ask you is, and this is me, I mean, I'm a bit younger than you. How do you keep your head so clean? I'll tell you what, my hairline has been recessed in the past few years. It reached all the way to my backside. But then those guys here are still as thick as a 24-year-old. What do you do?
I take care of it myself.
Really?
So I have my own shaver that I use 2-3 times a week, depending on what's happening. And rarely I would go to a barber, maybe once a month, once every other month, something like that. But look after myself.
Way.
And this is a way to hide my gray hair. So that's a very simple reason.
You're not doing a very good job here.
No. Well, I figured at some point you have to show your age.
Yeah, I think even if you do whatever you do, these guys here would show. And
giveaway. Giveaway.
I had a call with my sister the other day, and I haven't had she lives in Australia, and she's like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, probably I haven't been using my creams well.
There you go.
That's the thing. But how old are you?
I am 57 and a half. Yeah.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
Okay, MashaAllah.
So I am getting the reaction a lot. People think I'm much younger.
I wouldn't give you a day more than 47. I swear to God.
Awesome.
MashaAllah.
I've done some things well in my life then.
Okay, so let's start with, this is a detour, right? So let's start with that. Okay, tell me more. What did you do? Is it the water you're drinking? Is it apple cider vinegar? What?
Well, it's the basics, right? It's sleep. And by the way, I start with sleep, but that's the one I'm least good at. Exercise. I think to me that is super important. So you have to make sure no matter where you are, you're getting 2, 3, 4 times a week. Just stretch your legs, go to the gym. And if nothing is available, then do a little bit of push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups in your own room.
Walk me through your day. So what do you do?
So I mean, a typical day would be you get up early in the morning, Fajr prayers, and then either you, depending on what time the prayers are, you get a little bit of sleep after that. But before you go to work, you want to make sure that you go to the gym for an hour. If you're traveling, which I used to do a lot of traveling, the nice thing was the hotels would always have a very nice gym. So you alternate between cardio and muscles. Remember, as you get older, you have to be putting muscles on because that's what you're going to lose when you continue to age. So between cardio and strength, that's my alternate, 3, 4. Now, something I did this summer, which I'm really proud of, is I went hiking with my daughter.
Where?
And we did Yosemite National Park.
Where's that?
California.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
And they have this half dome hike, which is a very sought after ticket. So there's a lottery and they issue 250 to 300 tickets a day.
That's
it. So only that many people are allowed to go on this hike. This is a 30-kilometer round trip. Whoa. You go and you come back. It's about 1,500 meter elevation. And the last 400 feet or 500 feet is essentially you're pulling yourself up through cables because it is so steep that you cannot walk.
Oh, wow. So, the average Joe can't go just there. They have to be fit. Otherwise, you'll just collapse, right?
So you obviously have to train yourself and you have to make sure that you're walking,
you have to train
you're hiking.
Okay.
You have to train for this hike. I live on the 30th floor, so I was taking stairs a lot to my apartment.
To the 30th?
To the 30th, yeah. But the amazing thing was, so first, Yosemite is beautiful. Scenery is beautiful. They have this mist trail.
California.
And you're going up with water from the falls coming down. And literally, they've carved out stairs in the granite. Right? So you're walking up a lot. I didn't think I was ready for it, but honestly, my focus was we'll do as much as we can, and you can always turn back. But alhamdulillah, I went all the way till the end. Took a lot of breaks. Took a lot of.
How long? 4 hours, 5 hours, 3 hours?
It's actually took us close to I think 10 hours to get there.
That's respectable.
We started at 3:30 in the morning. Okay. And we returned to the parking lot somewhere around 10 p.m. the next day.
Was it summer?
It was July 1st.
July, okay. How's the weather there?
Beautiful weather.
It's not Dubai weather in July. Okay.
No, of course not.
Of course.
So that was an amazing thing. So hiking is something, again, if you want to, just finishing up the exercise conversation, if you get tired of the gym, hit the great outdoors.
Okay, so don't. We're in Dubai. I mean, I'll tell you what. Even it's not a complaint, right? It's a reality. I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm UK educated, so I go to the UK a lot, and every time I go there, I never take a train. I never take a taxi, even if it's half an hour, 1 hour walk. I just make sure that I schedule my time so I can leverage that clean air. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
So here in Dubai, I think because of the construction, because of the desert, even in the winter, with the weather is nice and bearable. I think it's the dust that just gets on you, right?
And it's the heat. You can do so much when the temperature is around 20 to 25 degrees. The minute it goes above 30, it just saps all your energy. So
it's unsustainable, isn't it?
It is.
So I think that's, and indoor walking, do not get me on a treadmill.
It's not exciting.
No. I mean, I see people, when I go to the gym, I see people, I walk in, I spend 45 minutes, I walk out, they're there when I came, and they're there when I left on the treadmill. I'm like, how can they do that? So
Mushrif Park has this amazing trail. It's a 10-kilometer trail.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the sand, so it's a soft trail. So as I was getting ready for this, I heard about it. I thought, let me go try it out. I started 5:30 in the morning because it was hot in the month of June. I finished around 7:30, and I was just, you're pretty much useless for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
because
it consumes probably 5,000 calories of it, and you spend the entire day just recovering.
Absolutely.
But that's okay. So that's now, right?
That's now.
And one of the things, and I think I wanted to touch on this deliberately, is there's something about us as professionals when we become in our 40s and 50s, and that we just think that this is a waste of time away from work, especially the higher the echelon you are, the CEO of a large organization. You think that, I can't do this, and you just skip it and skip it and skip it, and just after some time, it's almost impossible to come back to it. So how did you maintain it?
You have to. I mean, the thing is, the work demands are so high for all the professionals. The travel is intense. And if you're not taking time out for yourself, you're going to burn out very quickly. So to me, it was important to stay connected, to exercise. And I think the office culture was pretty much, everybody was traveling together. We were all together in the gym in the morning. So you're pushing each other as well. To make sure that you're there. It's a big thing, because to go through, sometime when you're traveling, your work hours could be as long as 18 hours a day.
True.
So to have that kind of stamina, you need to be preparing for it. You need to be getting ready. You need to make sure that you can be present for those 18 hours for the people who have put that day together for you.
Did you do anything this morning?
No. I was essentially getting ready for this.
Okay.
So my gym session today is going to be in the evening.
In the evening? Yeah. You will never skip it?
No, I try. You do skip it. So you end up being 4 to 5 days a week. So it doesn't...
That's not skipping it, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, relatively speaking, that's not... Skipping it is not doing it for a couple of weeks, right? But
True.
I think there's this recommendation that 3 hours a week is what you need to do. And as long as you're mixing between resistance, so the muscles, and cardiovascular, which is the heart, then you're in good shape. And you don't need to be Mr. Olympia. Just do not the bare minimum, but something that can keep you happy, because the healthy mind is a healthy body, right?
Yep.
And mashallah, I have to say, 57? Wow, okay, mashallah. So, okay, let me switch gears a bit to the CEOs, because you've been a CEO of a massive organization. And I'm seeing from my friends who are also CEOs of also large organizations, large and small, there's this thought process of, I think it's enough. I think, you know what, I don't know if I need to do this anymore. And this is my anecdotal view from people around me. Does this resonate with you?
No, absolutely.
Okay, tell me more.
So look, if you look at the average in a person's career, they would work 30, 35 years easily. So I've done that. Then you go back and you say, okay, but I was also paying for college myself, so I worked through my college, so that's 39. And you look at it and you say, but there's so much more I want to do. There's so much more to life than essentially, climbing the corporate ladder. So at some point you have to look in the mirror and you say, is this enough? And it's not, I don't want to confuse this with you lose the drive or you lose the hunger, because I think all of us who are on that journey have this massive desire to achieve, to be something, and not necessarily for yourself, but to be able to, because that's when you can give back. That's when you can make a difference in a bigger way.
Yes.
So so we've been going through that, my wife and I, in terms of when is the right time, and we decided 2024, where I would have completed 25 years with PepsiCo. My love affair for the last 25 years. We said, okay, 4 years as a CEO, and then a pretty rich career prior to that as well. This would be a good time. And the good thing about corporations is there's always a steady supply of great leaders that are ready to take over from you. So the talent building and the succession planning is a big thing. So you want to make sure that you're handing it off to somebody who can, just take it to the next level. And the way I look at these sort of roles and these sort of things is you have a fiduciary responsibility to take a great business, make it better than the way you found it, and hand it off to somebody who can take it to an even higher level, right? Because we all bring our unique perspective, our unique skill set. So to me, I've been blessed to have this amazing career with a great company, and I've been blessed to have some amazing leaders to learn from, and a great team to work with, and so when you walk away, there are no regrets. It's like looking back at your high school and college. You miss those days, you miss those people. You don't want to be back in high school.
Yes.
You don't want to be back in college, right?
100%.
So I feel I've done what I needed to do, and there's some great people in the company who will take it to an even more amazing place. And now the focus is, so how do I want my next chapter to be meaningful? So to me, that's, and then to your question, that's where it comes from. Because when you're inside a corporate environment, you're looking out and you say, well, there's so much more I can do. There's so much more I can do. But you're always short of time, and you're always sort of committed to, why you're here, your first responsibility. So to me, now is the time to look around and say, how can I add value? Not just in the corporate environment, work environment, but the communities that I'm part of. And to me, the biggest and most important is to be there for your family and friends.
Yes.
Who have been there for you for the last so many years.
Wow. So lots of intrinsic, let's say, influences to this decision. Is there any extrinsic influences to this decision as well?
I think to me, the most important thing was I was looking at two stakeholders in my own family, my parents and my kids. My parents are not getting any younger. So, and I'm blessed that both my mother and father are here alive.
Yes.
So to me, as you see them aging, as you see them going through their challenges, you say, well, I can spend more time with them. So to me, that was a big thing. In the same way, as your kids, and my kids, mashallah, graduated and they're both working and doing well, you want to be around and you want to be able to spend more time coaching and mentoring them.
Best coaches, your parents, absolutely.
Yeah. So my daughter just moved from San Francisco to Abu Dhabi. So she's here. So again, a lot of these factors went in to say this is the time, this is the right time to do it. There have been a lot of external forces saying, well, we love to do things together. We'll figure out how we can work together.
Yes.
So I think to me, that was a good reason. And I'm fascinated with the startup community, to be honest with you. There are so many sharp, talented people that are maniacally focused on figuring out one idea and how do they scale it and how do they make it work. To learn from them and to work with them to see what is it that I can pass on to them really excites me and really motivates me. So I've got quite a few connections now in that community. I'm meeting a lot of people next week as well. So to me, we're starting many conversations, and I'm truly excited about. I have no idea where those conversations will go.
And that's the excitement, right?
That is the excitement.
Because the corporate world, and I've had my fair share of corporate world experiences. At most of the levels, there's something about corporate that is exciting, which is you have the resources, you have the teams, you have the brands, you have the respect that is demanded. Whatever you do, it's just there, right? But then I always say, let's say this is me, and then I have my title, my certificates, my family name, my passport, whatever it is that is making me me. I take all of that. Who am I? Right? And that's the question that I always ask myself, and I always ask the people that I speak with. And I have to say, your move is very bold. Like, the influences are strong, but then there has to be another mindset. What was the mindset? I mean, you mentioned that you want to give back, and before, when we had the talk preparing for this, you mentioned that you were excited about the prospect of you mentoring this young generation. You mentioned it now with the startup community and how exciting the ambiguity of the terrain. But still, the courage to actually pull the trigger is on a completely different level, completely different sort of.
I think it comes down to how many more mountains to climb, right? What more do you want to achieve? So you break it down. I've been blessed to be working with the #1 food and beverage company in this part of the world. I've taken on the highest finance role available in this part of the world. Taken on one of the largest and more complicated roles as a CEO in this part of the world, right? So you can say, okay, now I can do the same somewhere else under the geography with the same company or in some other company. So then essentially you start the cycle again, and then that's the next mountain to climb.
And that's what almost 90% of people within your domain do. You see, he was a CEO here, now he's a CEO there, he's here, like either regional or different companies. It's true.
So I was, since I've left PepsiCo, I've been approached by some amazing people and companies to say, hey, as I was in one of those processes, which started before I left PepsiCo, it occurred to me, am I doing this so I can show that I've now gone from X to Y and I'm still the CEO and I want to stay relevant? Or is this really what I want to do next? And I like the ambiguity of not knowing what I want to do next. So what I said was, I'm going to take the summer off. I talked about going hiking.
Sure.
We spent a month in Turkey. So just completely switch off.
Yeah.
And then come back and have some conversations with people and see where that takes me. And, so the executive search firm did reach out. They asked me, well, so is it like now or...
Yeah, they're waiting,
or
right?
are you
Like
going to change your mind?
hyenas waiting for...
So I'm saying, look, I want the next chapter of my life to be different than what I've done, right? So I have no idea what that means at this stage. Let me figure it out. Let me talk to people, see where that takes me. And by the way, we're having the same conversation at home as well. My wife's like, sure, are you sure? Is this really what you want to do? You want to be available for people, companies versus committing to one? I'm like, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's try it. And look, what's the worst that can happen? You can always go back and say, I'm back, But until then, I really want to see if you split your time between the startup community, between what can I do for the community at large, and then the coaching, mentoring piece. And somewhere in between, there are companies that are looking for non-executive directors with the relevant skill set. So to me, those 3 or 4 areas, there's plenty for me to do there, plenty to be busy at, and meet some amazing people without the constraints of, I need to be back and I need to answer 20 emails or whatever. But to me, the other big thing is the travel, right? So, when you're being Middle East, being in Dubai, these are Dubai-based roles, but you're looking after the larger geography. So that means you are always on the road. And at some point you say, I've missed enough dinners, I missed enough gatherings, I missed enough connects, so maybe I'll just be around and see if people still remember me and they still want to call me for dinner or they've moved on. Okay.
So, that explains a lot. I mean, like I said, most of my friends who are in Dubai, obviously they're always traveling. I mean, I have countless numbers of cancellations on my dinners with them just because they're traveling. And absolutely, you're right. And even the other day, I was supposed to do a podcast with also a CEO of a larger organization. And he just texted me. He's like, sorry, I had an emergency meeting. I was pulled by the chairman, whatever. And I was like, of course, I understand. I mean, there are priorities in life. So these things come, and then he called me back afterwards, and it's like, I'm sorry. It's like, you don't have to be. But I know that guilt that happens within, which is outside of your control. So, but you mentioned something very curious, and I'm very curious to kind of explore that in your mindset, because your mindset is, I have to say, it's unique. Why am I saying this? Is confusion and ambiguity breeds anxiety. In your case, it breeds excitement.
Yeah. So if you talk to me April, May, I was probably more anxious then in terms of, trying to figure out, okay, am I doing the right thing? Should I be, So as you move on from one, then should I be looking to do something similar, but maybe less intense? And then you realize at some point, and that's the I think advantage of taking the summer off, because the last 39 years I've never had this kind of time off. So,
ever?
I mean, you take 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there, best, right? So to be able to take 4 months.
Yes. That's impossible.
Yeah, and exactly. So
can't do it while you're, employed somewhere.
So that gives you perspective. And
what is that?
I mean, the perspective is that what values, even at work, right? The value is how are you helping others, right? And now, because there are challenges, and there are people challenges, there are business challenges, there are different dynamics at play. So the excitement comes from working with great people in addressing those challenges. So I figured out that I can replicate that. I can replicate that kind of excitement. It doesn't have to be with one company. And then the other thing is, there have been an amazing number of people just texting, messaging, and saying, can we get on a call? Can we have a cup of coffee? Can we meet? So in whatever way, shape I can help, I can contribute. To me, that's
the self-fulfillment element.
Exactly.
Is just trumps everything else.
Gives you the reason. And I like the fact that I don't know what my next week's calendar is going to look like.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, for the past 30, 39 years, you exactly know what, not just next week, probably next month or next quarter. The first time I got a set of meeting requests for, let's say in 2024, you get the meeting request for 2025. I just smiled, because I mean, somebody somewhere is assuming that on December 14, 2025, you need to be on this call at this time with this many people discussing this topic. I mean, that's the kind of predictability you had in the corporate world.
The corporate world, right? So now it's nice to flip that and say, I don't even know what I'm doing next Thursday.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is indeed. As long as you can fill it up with meaningful stuff, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, you can only work out for so long and do other things. So to me, that's the challenge, that how soon and how fast can you fill up your calendar. So maintain that ambiguity, maintain that excitement, but have regular connects with businesses, with people where you're adding value.
Yes. I love what you're saying, meaning, because meaning is a this is how I see it. Meaning is lost. Right, I went probably more in the corporate world than others, because people are just in the grind, in the rat race, all of these meetings and all of these, KPIs and all of these targets that you have to achieve, and then you forget to look at the meaning. It's fascinating seeing you speak about meaning. How did that manifest in your work before? Yeah. Was that as clear?
It was, and that's why. So look, a lot of corporations are doing amazing things, and my old company is no different. So we call something performance with purpose. Mm-hmm. So that purpose element was always there. The purpose element, why, and I think of all the companies I've known and studied, and again I'm biased, but still I see PepsiCo doing a lot more for the community, for the environment, and maybe its peer group. Again, don't kill me on that, but that's the insider perspective. And that really excited me. That gives you, that purpose gives you the value alignment.
Value
alignment. and it's not just you, it's everybody's on the same page, everybody's doing the same thing in terms of focusing, okay, what can I do? How can I make it more sustainable? How can I reduce the amount of water we use and da-da-da. So there's a lot of focus on doing the right thing and doing the right thing for the communities, doing the right thing for the people, doing the right thing for the environment. How do you take that and say, okay, that is great at a corporate level. What am I doing at an individual level? And the individual level, it stays at, okay, you've contributed X amount to Y company or Y cause. And if you're fortunate enough, you can be on a board, or you can actually use your sort of hands
authority.
and you can get into decision making. You can get into making sure they're focused the right way. So those are the things that I would want to explore now and say, how do I do more hands-on? And I'm from, my family's always been involved in this kind of thing back in Pakistan. So they worked with a lot of, my mother used to go to jail to help the women who were in prison in providing legal aid. So she and a lawyer would go and visit them and help them, get their rights and understand their rights and make the right case.
That makes sense. Yeah, of course. I mean, meaning comes from intention. And like you said, purpose and intention is what drives the action that then is meaningful, right? I think what I meant is corporations maybe have the quote-unquote CSR or the purpose or whatever good. I'm not going to judge whether it's for the actual purpose with good intentions or for marketing and others. That's not for me to say. But then the people within it, it's just they lose that. I mean, at an individual level, like you said, to be able to have the clarity, the mental clarity to discern, okay, no, what I'm doing is meaningful, I'm having positive impact, or I'm just chasing,
Yeah.
And that drives me to, what do you say to people who are on the verge? Because I know for a fact, I have spoken to people who are CEOs and above, and actually they called me, and sometimes I coach them, and they ask me that question. Obviously, as a coach, I can't give any advice, but you can.
I can.
What's your advice to them?
So I think it starts with how excited are you when the Monday morning arrives? And if the Monday morning starts giving you tummy rumble, it's time to figure out why you're getting that. And try to understand, okay, because I used to tell my bosses, when you come back from a 2 weeks vacation, I can't wait to be back in the office, right? That shows that you're really excited about what is it that you do and the value that you're adding in the people you're working with, so that you can't wait to be back. Now, if that is waning, and sooner or later, you're going to get to a point where you're like, okay, seem to be going through the motion. So you got to ask yourself, is your heart, your head, and your hands are still in it that you do? Because you don't spend 40 hours a week, you spend probably 80 hours a week working, thinking about it. If the answer is no, then something else is waiting for you. You just need to give it time to figure out what that is. For some people, I'm always amazed. They know exactly what they want to do as the next chapter.
Yeah.
They've been working on it on the sideline, and they seamlessly transition into that. I never had that bandwidth or the structure or maybe the foresight to lay it all out beforehand. So I'm going through a trial and error, meet different people.
For a finance guy, that's weird, right? Because I speak with CFOs and their Excel sheets is just, But then what
planners,
gives? Exactly,
right.
Planners. You speak like an artist. Well, I mean, so okay. So you tell them that, okay, if they have this Monday morning rumble, if they have this kind of their heart and their mind, so the mind, the heart, and the gut is not in the same place as their hands, which is what they do. Let's say they know that, and now they're like, yep, that's exactly how I feel Monday morning. What do they do?
I think figure out an exit strategy. So what that means is you sit down with your boss and you say, hey, I need to be doing something different. Now, this is what I have in mind. Do you think we can achieve that within the corporate environment? So if for example, travel for you is a big thing, like, you're away from your family 4 days a week, and you say, look, Is there something that gives you more stability that allows me? And if the answer, once you've gone through all those options, then the hardest thing to do is to take that leap and say, okay, I think I'm okay doing something on my own. I think this was a good innings, played well, worked well on both sides. So I'm ready to do something different. That ready to do something different can only work if you also have some financial flexibility.
Independence, yeah.
Independence, flexibility. Because if you need to make sure that the school tuition in Dubai and all the living expenses and everything else that happens, if you're watching that carefully, then you need to find the fire. You need to ask yourself, why was I in this in the first place? You need to connect to what is it that excites me, and you need to bring that Monday morning excitement back. So to me, if the Monday morning excitement is not there, and you have financial independence, and you'd rather be somewhere else, go be somewhere else, go do something else. There are plenty of great people to take over from you. So don't have the savior complex, where I'm the only one who can drive this. Plenty of great people who will take over, probably do a better job. So to me, offset that with bring the excitement back. What is it that I'm not happy about? How do I engage? To me, new challenges, new year always brought new opportunities, new challenges. We used to do objectives, for everyone in terms of connecting our objectives with the corporation's objectives. In fact, when my kids were in school, I even brought that process back at home. And I said to my kids, hey, what do you want to do this year? What do you want to learn? What do you want to do differently? So take those objectives concept, bring them home. It brings that excitement to say new year, new beginning.
Yeah.
At some point, if you as a professional not able to show up and be there for everyone the way they expect you to be, to me, that's telling. You don't need a coach to tell you that it's time to do something different. You just need to believe what your gut is telling you.
I think the circumstances for people are different, and speaking to you now, it's clear that the courage that you have, but also you say that you don't have structure, but obviously you have structure, because when you think about the financial independence and the financial flexibility, which is really, pragmatically speaking, you can't be at our age with all of these responsibilities that we have. We can't just be kamikazes, right? You can't just jump, because it's not just us.
That would be reckless.
It'll be very reckless. And, we're not 24 where we can just go back to our mom's basement. It doesn't work that way. So it starts with, preparing let's say the runway. So knowing that, if I don't have an income for God knows how long, do I have A, enough runway, and B, probably some passive income that I've developed over the years, whether it's investments, whether it's, properties, whatever it is, that can sustain a certain lifestyle that can allow me to kind of maintain that courage of going into the unknown, to kind of the kind of uncharted territories. So let's say we have all of that. But then people are still not
convinced.
Yes, but they actually don't have the Monday morning courage, because most people at the CEO level, come on, they're smart enough, they're intelligent enough, they're high achievers for a reason, and they can't be high achievers there, and then their life is not in order. So all of that, what you said, is technically, and they're probably investors, they're angel investors, so they have multiple ventures, but they're still they have this, what they call it, the golden handcuffs. So,
personal story.
Yeah.
I had this amazing mentor, amazing boss here, head of Middle East Africa region for PepsiCo for many, many years. Passed away a few weeks before his 60th birthday. Amazing leader, very inspirational. We all wanted to be like him. We all wanted to emulate. Knew the business cold, had personal connect with everyone in the organization, from frontline in Egypt, let's say, to obviously all the executives at the head office, right? Mm-hmm. Never got a chance to enjoy what he worked for beyond his working life. So, nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror each day and say, am I being true to all the cohorts, all the stakeholders in my life? Am I there for them? And you also have to ask yourself, what's enough? How much is enough? When is it enough? So do you go from, and I know, and again, this is not a disrespect to anyone. A lot of people need to be out of the house just so they can think straight. They want to be at work. They want to deliver. They look at that as I'm adding value because I'm with company XYZ.
Validation, would you say?
Validation, or just reason to breathe. I mean, a reason to be awake. A reason to get out of the house and say, this is who I am.
Is that egocentric, in your opinion?
You have to have a certain amount of ego, right? To be the driven. To be driven to achieve and against all odds, because you're making massive sacrifices throughout your career. Look, anybody who thinks walking into any corporate executive role, this piece of cake.
Yeah.
You work with amazing people.
Yeah.
Anyone under the right circumstances can have the opportunity to take over from you, sure. And be a leader. Some of them will be amazing. So to me, it's a very highly competitive environment, but at the same time, it's a highly rewarding environment because you can see the benefits, the fruits of your labor, yes. and the value that you bring in. If that's your dopamine, that's what you need on a daily basis, then you need to be connected, right? What I've been talking about going to Kilimanjaro for, I don't know how long. It was on my bucket list before I get to 50, then it was 55. Now, let's see if we can get there before 60. To me, those are the kind of things, if you're just talking about it, and not actually doing something about it, this is the alternative. That's the indication that you want to do more, you want to achieve more, you want to be there for more people. And again, it doesn't take anything away from the companies that you work for or the people that you work with, and a lot of times they're the reason where you're excited, about going to work every Monday morning because you work with amazing people. And you can't wait to be in the room with them and brainstorming and strategizing,
But it's a compromise.
It's a compromise.
It's a compromise. You're compromising this. You're compromising probably your family. You're compromising other elements. Doesn't matter. It's not good or bad. It's pragmatic. You're either here or here.
Yeah, flexibility. To me, that's the big word. If you're looking for flexibility, my family is spread throughout the world. They're in the U.S., they're in Pakistan, they're here. So if you're looking for flexibility, then you say, okay, what can I do?
What's my priority, right? What's my priority? Whatever I'm doing, is it kind of adapting to this flexibility, or is it just restraining it, right?
And I smile when you ask the question about a lot of people are going through the exact same question. Because when I do meet people, some look at you with envy, some look at you with, are you crazy?
Which one is bigger, the first sum or the second sum?
I think there are a lot of people who are figuring out how they can get more flexibility in their career, in their lives, right? They just haven't figured out exactly how. Now, I mean, amazingly, a lot of companies are also offering, flexible work environment, work from home, work from office, things like that. But look, as a CEO, you set the pin of the culture, right? So you can't say, well, I think this week I'm going to work from home. Good luck, guys. Well, I'll be available on all the Zoom calls, right? Because I think there's a lot that you pick up in the hallways, in the environment, in casual interactions, and having lunch with your colleagues, skip level meetings that you're not going to get, working from home. We all survived COVID, and I think.
But it's not sustainable. Yeah,
it's not sustainable. I think it's very transactional. It got us to.
It allows us. It's opened the door to a new realm of way of doing things. But I agree.
So to me now, if you come back and you say, okay, kudos to the companies that offer a lot of flexible policies, lots of flexible benefits. But I think my need is greater. I want to do something different, right? So you have to ask yourself, what is that commitment? And 6 months from now, let's see if I've not been able to put those pieces together that I think I can. Who knows? Things could be very different.
Aren't you afraid of failure?
No. Have you not failed ever in your life?
What? Don't talk about me. I'm a big failure now. But the point that I'm trying to say is when the higher you are, and I think I speak about our culture as I would say Middle Easterns, I mean, just in this part of the world, right? So spanning from all the way from Pakistan, India, all the way to, let's say, Egypt and Morocco, and then from Turkey to probably Central Africa. This group of people culturally avoid conflict predominantly,
True. Yeah.
like to save face, respects authority, and mainly stigmatize failure. That's why I need to be an engineer, because I don't want to be a failure, because otherwise either an engineer or a failure, or a doctor or a failure, right? That's the stigma that we have as this part of the world. So when you so confidently and so decisively say, no, where did this come from?
Well, I think there's an element of, you know, when you walk away from something you love, you know, you've got to ask yourself that, okay, have I done everything I could have done to make that place a success? The answer is yes. I gave it my life. I gave it everything. And we achieved some amazing successes. Do I still have it in me to continue that in the same business as somewhere else? The answer is yes. But at what cost? What are you giving up on? And then you say, I never had
compromise, right?
Yeah, and I've never had this opportunity to just sidestep and just say, what else is there for me to do? How else can I add value? And you give yourself a time frame and you say, okay, I'm going to, you know, realistically give it a shot and see, you know, and let's see if we can make it work. Failure, the fear of failure is always there. We're all afraid to fail. We all think about it. But in this particular instance, you know, you look back and say, I have an amazing career. So let's take it away from me. Anyone who's a CEO, anyone who's at the pinnacle of their career, right?
Yes.
They're here, Middle East, North Africa, or Middle East, Pakistan, or whatever version of Middle East, in a leadership position. So you always look ahead and you say, who is ahead of you and how do I become there? But for a moment, just look back and say, how many people didn't make it to where you are?
True.
And I can guarantee you there are infinitely more people who didn't make it to where you are than the people who did. That means you are head and shoulder ahead of the population of the country that you've come from. Head and shoulders. In that, if at the top of your game, we're not getting younger, and you say, okay, I'm 57, I can do this for another 5 years, or I can do something more for another 5 years. Okay, what's the compromise, right? Let's look at it. In that you're taking a chance. I don't call that a failure at all. I mean, to me, that is where is your learning journey? I'm going to learn a few things about myself, and along the way, maybe figure out that maybe I am also good at something else. And if not, and if work is not how you define, then 3 to 5 years from now, I'm going to have amazing stories about the time I'm spending with my parents, with my kids, with inshallah my grandkids, and you know. So to me, wouldn't that be worth something? So fast forward 5 years from now, would you look back at this era when maybe you were not working as much, you were not getting that dopamine hit every day about solving a problem, the amazing conversation that you're having with people without looking at your phone, without saying, but I gotta go and I can only do this for 2 more minutes, and not being there when you need to be there, wouldn't that count for something?
I got goosebumps. That's powerful. I got to tell you, if tomorrow 10 CEOs didn't resign because of that,
No.
It's just crazy. I'll tell you what. Wow. Okay.
It's a lot of pressure.
So I'll tell you what, because you're speaking your heart, right? That's integrity and honesty. And if you're not walking the talk, because you hear a lot of people that, I want to be a coach, I want to be a mentor, I want to be this, but they're still in their CEO position. Now, I'm not judging, but I'm like, okay, like, you need to show, not tell, if that makes sense. And you know, the way you just laid out, okay, these are choices. It's different scenarios. And you know, all CEOs, we executives, we have scenario planning. Just put all the scenarios and then choose. And then when you choose, don't complain. And when you pass away, like your colleague at work, people will just remember you for a couple of days and then they'll move on. And then what happened next?
So there's a saying that nobody at work will remember you for what you delivered. They will remember you for how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
So I've done 25 operating plans in my life, right? Does anybody keep track of how many actually were ahead of plan, behind plan, on plan? How many mistakes you made, how many things you broke, how many things you got it right? I don't think so. I think people look at you, judge you by your reputation, which is a cumulative sum of everything that you've done. They judge you by your reputation. You get promoted based on tangible results plus credibility plus da-da-da-da. So at some point, you're looking at all of this and say, it's really about people-to-people connection. Those people-to-people connection will outlast the fact that you work for company X or company Y.
That's powerful. What about the savior complex? If someone has a savior complex, so obviously you don't have that, right? I mean, it's a mindset. What if I am the person who thinks that, you know what, no, I need to make sure that you're okay, the company is okay, and if I leave, the company will just collapse.
Yeah,
because there's a dime and a dozen of that. Like, especially in our part of the world. I mean, this is part of my research. Just we have a lot of control culture in our region, as opposed to, let's say, especially the West. The East is probably more severe. What do you think about that?
Look, first, we're all humans, right? And the more you contribute, the more you add value, the more you like the sound of that, the more you think that, okay, but I need to be in that room to make a decision.
Yes.
Because I'm adding value.
100%.
Right? I'm making a difference.
With all good intentions,
all
100%.
good intention.
Yeah.
Honestly, even if I had that, it all went away when my colleague, friend, mentor passed away. Because somebody who was so instrumental to building this organization to what it was, gone overnight, right? And next day, a new leader steps up, a new leader with all their humility, do the best they can, and you judge them with their result, business as usual. And you say, wow, the business didn't miss a beat. So, and the other thing is, coupled with, I was always an outsider. I mean, so I was born in Pakistan, grew up in the US, came back to Pakistan, then in Middle East. So in the US, you're a Pakistani American. In Pakistan, okay, you came from the US. In the Middle East, well, you're not an Arab. I mean, so again, you're always an outsider. So you're always trying to prove yourself. And coupled with, okay, I didn't go to some of the best schools that people have been blessed to go, or work for some of the great companies that people work with. So I felt that I was, either you're the smartest person in the room or you're the hardest worker in the room. So I opted to be the hardest worker in the room. Plenty of smart people I came across. And so to me, that meant that you had to try harder. You had to be more of a consensus builder. You had to take people along. And when you walk in the room and people are looking at you and saying, okay, so where do we go? Do we go left? Do we go right? You say, well, that's not how it's going to work. I think let's figure it out. What is the right thing to do here? Is going to the right is the right thing to do, or going to the left is the right thing to do?
That's how you used to lead.
That's how I used to lead. That's so you get people in, you have those conversations, you say, based on that, I think let's go do this, let's go do that. So you get all perspectives, you get all inputs in, but at the end of the day, you get to pay. You get paid to make the decision. So you make the decision, but it's a fully informed decision, versus I know it all, I've done it all, I've seen it all. Let's go left.
That's cultivating. I mean, if you cultivate that type of mindset in your people, then obviously you'll have lots of people who are empowered. And then the more they're empowered, the more they'll be able to make decisions with confidence. And the more they'll be able to make decisions with confidence, obviously they're skilled and they're competent, so they'll take. And then if you have 10 people rowing in the same direction, it's much, 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 much better than having one, and much more sustainable as well. Right?
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
It's very powerful and very contagious as well, because then people look at that kind of energy and say, hey, this team got it figured out, or this team they're doing amazing things. They want to be part of that.
So, okay. Lots of powerful things now. It's like I'm trying to unpack everything you're saying, because it's just so many things I want to kind of dig deep into, but then we have a limited amount of time. So let me switch gears a little bit. When you talked about startups and how startups are an exciting breed of people, because they get excited about the unknown as opposed to the tested, done and tested and tried and all that sort of stuff. And that's a mindset. So you either have it or you don't have it. It's very difficult. It's like, it's like you're either left brain dominant or right brain dominant, whatever. What's the biggest challenge that you see now coming from a company that obviously as large as PepsiCo and being a CEO, so looking after corporate processes, employee satisfaction, productivity, impact on societies, and so on and so forth? What's the biggest challenge that startups face, especially and specifically in this part of the world, from your perspective?
Before I address that, let me just flip the courage part. See, you characterize my move as courageous. Having worked in a global conglomerate or global company for 25 years, secured some kind of financial flexibility to branch out. Imagine the startup founders who are doing that at a much earlier stage in their career. They're leaving good jobs with consultants, with other multinationals, with companies, and they're putting their families and friends, in some cases, savings into an unknown venture with the promise that this will somehow give you fivefolds, tenfolds. And we all know the success rate is not one-to-one, right?
100%, yeah.
So to me, that's true courage.
Okay,
so if you look at it that way.
But that's why startups are a different breed, right?
They're a different breed. And now I think there's a whole host of them maniacally focused on one specific issue, driven by founders' passion, backed by VCs or companies that are keeping them disciplined. I don't think funding is an issue. I think to me the largest issue is the scale.
Okay.
So if you start from zero, there's a number in your mind that when you get to that number, you're like, wow, that's great. I've gotten to $1 million revenue.
Yes.
Now all I need to do is just scale it up, and we can make 120 and we can make 2050 and and next thing you know, we'll all be happy and financially well off. We can exit and all that and exit at this price.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens. I think a lot of times the scale, if you just think of it this way, if you're a $100 million revenue company, $1 million innovation idea is not a big deal.
Absolutely.
If you're $500 million revenue company, you're going to say, don't even waste my time with $1 million idea, or give me $20 million ideas that are easy to execute. So I think often we underestimate the effort requires to truly scale up the business, the partnerships that are needed. Now, if a big chunk, if you're operating in Saudi Arabia and, the modern trade, hypermarket is 35% of the trade structure, and you as a small startup trying to break into that, how do you do that? If you're looking at alternate channels to make your product available, you're not going to get that scale because that huge, you're locked out of that huge area. So to be able to truly scale your business, you need to be everywhere. To be everywhere, you just don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the scale to make yourself available. So I think it takes a lot of time for the small idea, commercializable idea, value-added idea,
tested idea, there's a market fit.
There's a market for it. But how do you really get it to a scale where it makes a difference?
But what do you mean be everywhere?
Be everywhere. So, for example, you have your app. You're available digitally.
Right.
Are you available in supermarkets? Are you available? If it's a food and beverage idea, are you available in mom-pop stores?
So you're testing you have multiple hypotheses, and you're just testing all of the. Okay.
And
that's the scale you're talking about,
which is almost okay. So you have different channels that are different channels that are available for your consumer to walk in, and they serve a different need.
Okay.
And how accurately have you tied your product to the need of the consumer or the customer? Okay. And are you available where they shop? Are you available where they are?
Do you think this is the biggest challenge startups face?
To me, I think the biggest challenge is the scale up of the idea. Now, this is just one example of how you do that. But from my limited understanding, I would say that lots of good companies, good founders working on great ideas, they have a commercially viable product, but how do they truly scale it up where it makes a difference to...
And that's the challenge. Okay, so we'll touch on that challenge in a moment. But first, and this is me talking to also a lot of founders, specifically a lot of investors as well. And the thing that pops up in my view, and again, I could be wrong here, is the founder's maturity. Everybody's saying, oh, we're still young as a nation, as a region. We're not like Silicon Valley or London or Netherlands, where the founders are mature enough to understand that, no, I need to be the go-to everywhere within my business. And there's a level of mistrust between investors and founders because of that. Did this cross your radar at some point?
Hasn't yet, but I think that's where the VCs are there to play that role, right? VCs are there to make sure that you understand the playing field, the swim lane that you have, and how do you need to stay in that swim lane, and where you are lacking maturity, how do we connect you with the right people to then help you, cover that? Because every person, they cannot be expert on everything, right?
Yes.
So it's about filling your team with the dedicated or advisory roles, people who have that expertise, so they can cover your blind side. To me, that's an important role that VC should be playing with the founders to make sure that they understand what are the limitations.
Are you working with founders now or not yet?
It's an area that I'm exploring, so we're very early stages, some discussion.
What's the experience so far? Because to you came from the experience, the body of knowledge that you have is massive when it comes to corporates. You're now coming into the startup world, obviously the wealth of experience and wisdom that you can just to guide these people, these startups, is unbelievably huge. But I think, in my opinion, the number one value is that expert eye, that coach perspective, from an outsider perspective. So when you come in, you see things no one else can see from within that domain. So what's the one thing that pops up to you?
Synergies.
Okay.
So let's use Disney as an example. I think it's a great company that has really figured out how do you synergize across different businesses. They have a hit movie. Then they go to the theme parks, they have a ride based on that movie. They're the consumer products division. They have product, T-shirts, bed sheets, whatever, toys, everything in between with that. Then they have streaming rights. Then they have gaming, and then so on. So every division of that large business is leveraging the intellectual capital that they've created through the movie, and they're monetizing it.
True.
So the movie may have given them $1 billion upside, right? But everything else may give them another $4 billion. So that power of synergy that exists in large corporation, I'm not sure how the startup market is looking at that. So what do I mean? I may be working on a great idea, but I may not have the best packaging. Somebody else may be working on the best packaging. They may not have the great product. How are we connecting the dots? How are we working? Somebody else may have figured out the route to market, or the technology, the data, or distribution, what have you. Maybe there's some great marketeers. How do you combine forces to say, well, we are essentially working on different aspects of the same problem? How do we pool our resources to really have a killer product versus our individual product that maybe is good enough, but then to have a truly great product, how do we come together? I'm not sure, and again, this is an outsider perspective, I'm not sure how much of that looking over each other's shoulder is happening to say, what can I learn from you? But this is what you can learn from me. I'm sure there are lots of connects. I think there are lots of discussions, but are we truly combining forces to say, together we can be
so you see
better.
This as a missing sort of...
Just the sheer number of ideas that are out there in the same space, right? So to me, there has to be some pooling, there has to be some consolidation, there has to be some coming together of sacrificing individuality to make sure that we can collectively win. Yeah. So I see that, but again, I don't want to go into these conversations as ex-CEO of PepsiCo and how can I help. I want to go in with the question that you asked, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing? And what do you think you need to address those challenges? So to me, it's that. And then that brings to mind, well, what role can I play in helping them address those challenges? Because I don't want to assume I know about their space, which I don't. So learn from them, understand, what keeps them up at night, understand how they're tackling that, and then just really assess with them, is there a better way of addressing the challenge?
That's a true coaching mindset, because the coach is someone who asks powerful questions, explore certain levels of the awareness within the person who's they're coaching without really telling them what to do. But what's stopping this synergy, in your opinion? Is there like something clear, or is just...
To me, I think a lot of this is how fast are they running, and how much time are they spending understanding that what are our bottlenecks and where can we go to address those bottlenecks. It's a hypothesis.
So I always say this, and anyone who followed me for any period of time know that you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, if you don't know that you're not leveraging synergy, how would you leverage synergy? How do you know about the existence of synergy, right? So, it might not be clear, or even, probably it's wrong to reduce it to a causal effect of why synergies in the way that you've mentioned it, that I have the conscious effort to look and then see, and it's like, I can use that from here, and I can use this from here. But how do we know as a startup? How do I know? Now, I'm a startup myself. How do I know that I'm not leveraging? And maybe I tried and I got stung for whatever reason that left a bad taste, or some sort of a scar tissue that allowed me to, or kind of clouded my thinking.
Or a culture mismatch, or I did compare notes with the other founders and I got burned, or it didn't work out the way I expected it to. And I think again, VCs have a role to play here, because they have a much bigger view of what are they supporting, who's working on that. I'm sure they're doing a great job. So again, as I get into this space, as I start talking to some of these people, I'll have a better sense of the true barriers in this. But the fact that a lot of them are designed to fail, right? Because not everyone is going to. But essentially, from that failure comes new opportunities and new success stories and learning. To me, that's exciting, right? And that's where you have in the Middle East, you have a wide structure in UAE, in Saudi, Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, quite a few countries. How do they come together? I was during my PepsiCo days, we were working with somebody in Saudi Arabia, and we visited Ministry of Communication and IT, where they had set up incubators. Where they had
Jordan?
In Saudi.
In Saudi,
Riyadh.
Okay,
They'd set up incubators where they had people from teams from different parts of the Middle East working together on different
parts
problems.
Of the Middle East.
Different parts of the Middle East. So they set about 30, 35 teams from all over, mostly Saudi, but then other countries as well. That kind of environment will breed synergy because they're coming together.
True. And that allows you to know what you don't know, because now you get feedback and you explore areas that otherwise you wouldn't be able to know on your own. So one of the challenges that most of the startups that I work with usually voice to me is the I wouldn't say geopolitical, but policy restrictions around our region. Look at the United States. It's a massive country. It has 350, 370 million. The buying power is really high, and you have the economy that's kind of feeding on its own in a very healthy way. Come to the Middle East, we also between 300 to 350 million, but then it chunked down all the way to sometimes the city. So I have someone from city A within the country can't work with city B because of whatever reason. And that is voiced out to me as the main pain point. And I've actually had a guest here who said, I'm venturing to the United States because of that. What do you feel about this?
Yeah, complexities, again, a huge challenge for everyone, not just the startups, especially the geopolitical, challenges. There's also another element that in Middle East, it's almost open doors. I can get products from Australia, I can get products from the US, and I can products from everywhere else in between, right? So huge competition, but the challenge is they operate at a different playing field than those who are manufacturing in GCC or in Middle East. Because if you're manufacturing in country X or country Y,
Yes.
you're subject to the regulations of that country. If you're importing into that country, same regulations don't apply.
Oh, wow.
So in certain cases, there is a difference that what I have to use as ingredient in country X.
Yes.
But if I'm importing it from the US, Australia, UK, I can import it with that ingredient.
So what's the incentive? You're right. Yeah.
So that's where a lot of companies are working with the government, and the government's quite receptive to that as well in addressing this issue. So to me, it's not just the geopolitics, but the incentives are different. So for somebody to take that risk and put that manufacturing space, and actually manufacture it locally,
Yes.
they have to be fully compliant with the laws of the land.
In probably more rigorous way than importing.
And that is the right word, I think, in more rigorous way than the import. So to me, that's the other challenge.
And startups will always take the path of least resistance. So probably they'll just let go of manufacturing here and go to import-export, which is obviously
not as value driving
No.
activity. So even before you get into these, that you need to be able to export freely to so many countries within Middle East from your location X to be able to make it work. You're also competing with, I don't want to name a product, but we had a product coming in from Italy, from Philippines, and competing against the product that was being made in Middle East, and the US as well. So you have 3 import, sort of locations versus one local manufacturing location, and the trade is going to take advantage of that and go to the one that where they make the most margin. So this is a massive
challenge.
issue, and that's where again I get into scale. So UAE population of 10, 11 million people in itself is exciting, but not enough.
Absolutely.
So you need to now be able to get into Saudi. So again, the big market, the biggest market in the region, you have your own challenges there, and then you have to be able to break into the trade, or you have whatever your go-to channel is to the consumer to get scale. Regulations are different. Regulations are not the same. So you have to understand what those differences are and make sure you incorporate that at the design stage. Yes, and that is a could be disincentive. But I think my argument would be, how can we work closely with the right regulatory bodies of those countries to make sure they understand the challenges? Because in my experience, they're extremely receptive once they understand what the challenges are, whether it's the level playing field, whether it's the regulatory environment that sometimes that is not right, that they're able to help. And this is where a lot of our Middle Eastern countries have government-funded backed incubators as well.
Cool.
They're playing a critical role. And depending on the field you're in, fintech, edutech, agritech, consumer products, depending on health tech, wherever you are, how do you connect to the regulatory body and let them know early on that this is a challenge you're facing?
I think you've touched on a very, very important point here. And I think it sparked something in my mind, is that sometimes we are designed and programmed to look at the negatives without looking at the positives because of those negatives. So as startups, we get excited by challenges. And whatever we've discussed now is a challenge. And if it's not exciting us, then maybe we're in the wrong domain.
Of course,
because it's a unique challenge. The ability, and I take cues from Fadi Ghandour, who's obviously the founder of Aramex, and he said when he started, the biggest challenge for the first 14 or 15 years, is just to get around those. And remember, this is in the 80s, where people weren't as open-minded and as free market as now. But he said the way he just went from ministry to ministry, from government to government, from authority to authority, from policymaker to policymaker, across our region, just to make sure that Aramex, which is obviously practically importing and exporting, moving stuff around, which is the most critical thing for governments, is operating well. And he was able to make it. Yeah. So that's a challenge that excited him. And he said, and I remember he had an interview with, I think Al Jazeera or Al Arabiya with Riz. And he actually, while he was explaining it with excitement. Like that was difficult and challenging and obviously dangerous. But at the same time, that's what made it exciting as a startup and entrepreneur. And if you look at challenges as something that would deter you, then maybe you're not an entrepreneur for real.
Well, I mean, because your starting point is a killer insight. And that killer insight is addressing a specific challenge. So if there were no challenges, you don't have an insight, right?
Wow.
You don't have a business idea. You don't have an idea. Your insight is my product or business model is in unique position to address this challenge in the market A.
True.
And that's what gets everybody excited because you articulate it in a way and then you get funding for it. So to me, challenges breed opportunities, right?
Supposedly, I think, wow, okay, so this is for me, it's a new way. I think I need to write it up after this because the way it's a mindset thing that, okay, we have these challenges, but so what? That's even better. Don't just keep on complaining about it as a startup. Let me shift gears to now quickly to the VCs, because you mentioned VCs and investors and those sort of this side of the startup domain. In your opinion, and relatively speaking, and I know you've been really, really politically kind of careful in the way you conduct your opinions, but which is fine. But how do you see VCs, relatively speaking, in this part of the world and their support to everything we're trying to say?
Risk averse.
Okay. Okay.
Look, I think this part of the world has unique challenges. I mean, if you look at globally, if I'm a global player, I can go anywhere in the world.
True.
Right? Tell me again why Middle East needs to be my number 1, number 2, and number 3 source of funding. You've got ecosystems that are amazing in the US, amazing in Southeast Asia, China, parts of Europe. And we haven't even gotten to Latin America in terms of all that's going there. So now you're focusing on Middle East, North Africa. Let's focus on Middle East, North Africa, and I'll bring Pakistan into that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
You have some of these countries going through, very difficult challenges.
Sure.
Egypt and Pakistan go through devaluation. So yesterday, let's say somebody shared a big idea that was. I'm making up the numbers, $10 million. Well, guess what? There was overnight devaluation. Now that idea is worth $5 million. Am I still excited?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you're measuring your book based on dollars and cents, opportunities and investments. Well, I know my investment is in dollars, but my returns are in local currencies. And in highly volatile economies, that return is not guaranteed. Maybe it's never guaranteed to begin with, but even more so with the threat of devaluation coming in, right? So you have some unique challenges in certain markets that VCs globally in the US will look at it saying the size of the book is very small. So based on what we have done, we have not seen the return. So to me, the more success stories we have out of this part of the world, better we will be in attracting more focus, funding, and oversight.
So you're talking about someone who's sitting in an office in Sand Hill Road, right, in Silicon Valley. What about the local ones? The family offices, the conglomerates, the kind of VCs that are here. Don't they have some sort of a different way of looking at things, in your opinion?
Yeah, and it's the opportunity cost.
Right.
So my understanding of the local group is I'm looking for a certain amount of cash flow. I'm still looking for a certain amount of returns on an ongoing basis, right? So, my current businesses need to do that for today. My future businesses where I'm investing need to provide a certain amount of returns, and I'm investing. A lot of that investment, I'm sure there's some very sophisticated players out there as well, but also there are family businesses that are putting bets in different bets because I know this person, bet because the son has a passion for this field. So there's scientific and there are non-scientific ways of allocating funding.
Yes.
But again, my view as an outsider is that we haven't gotten to a science yet overall where people understand that if I'm investing in 10 bets, maybe one will pay off.
The J curve, right?
Exactly. And the other 9, is essentially, I want to make sure, and then we also, it's based on trust.
Yes.
So if you lose money, so do I trust you less now? Or in the West, you would say, I lost money, but look what I learned from it. So therefore, my next venture now has, my success rate may have gone up from 20% to 40%.
Because of the learning.
Because of the learning, because it's what team went through, right? So you're building on previous failures to get to that success story. How sophisticated are we here in sort of understanding that kind of time? But I'm looking forward to some amazing conversations in this space. Yeah.
Look, we're not talking about the future. Obviously, I'm a very optimist person. I'm a pragmatic person, but obviously I don't think of the tomorrow based purely on the way things happen today, right? Because that's impractical. But addressing the elephant in the room is very important if we have all the intention to actually grow. Because if you don't look in the mirror and reflect and say, hey, this is I have something going on here. I need to kind of play sports to kind of minimize. If I don't see it, then obviously I won't be incentivized to do it. And this is why I keep on asking these questions. And I had an interesting discussion the other day with an investor who's no more an investor. So he said, I quit this game.
Why?
So I was very, very interested. I was like, why? I was like, man, these founders, they're kids. They're like, okay, what do you mean by that? It's like they keep on asking for money, and like the sentiment is exactly. I've spent, I think, for up to 10 or 15 startups, and all of them failed. I'm like, okay, so what was your expectations? It's like, I don't know. I was like, okay, but this is how it is. I mean, obviously you can't be an investor investing $1 million if you only have $1 million, right? I mean, you have to have at least $100 million to invest $1 million. And that's then the $1 million to you. It's like $1 to someone who has $100. It's nothing.
It's a crypto example, right? That you invest in crypto if you have $1 million to put somewhere and not worry about it.
And you don't feel the sting if it failed. And that's the thing. The thing that I knew for a fact is that person, that investor was well off, obviously. So it wasn't a matter of money. It was just a matter of, like you said, risk aversion, and then getting, again, I probably because this is how my field of research, I go back to the culture, whether it's a corporate culture or even the regional and national and macro culture, right? The fear of failure.
But I think you're also describing a perfect example of a misalignment with strategy. So I'm investing in startups. Why? Mm-hmm. What is the problem I'm trying to solve? Now, the way I would approach it is that we cannot do everything ourselves. We can, as a company, as a corporate, as a local group, we cannot have all the answers come from within. So I need to make some strategic bets on smart people, founders, innovators, who are dabbling in the same space as I am. Perhaps they can get to those answers faster, cheaper, than I can through my internal resources. So I'm going to make certain bets all in my playing field. And the minute one of those bets pay off, I'm going to take that and plug and play in my core business. Even if it's a failure, I can now learn from it and say not doing it. So to me, the approach, a local group, they're not taking it the way they should be looking at it, is what are the problems we're trying to solve internally? Who is best placed to solve some of those problems externally? How do I give them some money to go dabble, do what you need to do, but I'm going to have a senior executive provide an oversight. So I understand what is it that you're doing, I understand how it fits back into the mothership, and together we can both benefit from it. Because if it's simply, give me $1 million, go away, don't ask me any question, and every quarter I'll send you a newsletter, I'm not sure we're doing justice to both sides, right? Because in a way we're giving free money to somebody to go play with it without any accountability, and the company, the shareholders, the board doesn't have any insight into will that eventually pay off, and how will that help me solve my problems? Now, if you're in the real estate business and you're investing in something totally unrelated, what's your strategy? Are you doing it because you have extra money and he's a friend of yours? Or are you doing it because at the end of the day, you want to branch out to that area, and for you, this is a cheap experiment versus setting up a whole line of business? So to me, it really starts out off with the purpose. What is your strategy? Do you have as a group, do you have a vision, mission, strategic priorities? Part of that is I'm going to bet on 5 ideas outside my 4 walls, because I think if any of those ideas become big, I can bring them inside my walls and I can capitalize on it.
And if they don't, I know how not to do it within, and that's a win-win
And
situation.
wouldn't that be worth something to the organization,
That's crazy.
right? So to me, it needs to be part of something bigger, something more meaningful versus, well, you know, I, Aamer Sheikh, have, I don't know, X amount of money, so I'm going to pick 5 founders that I like and give them that money to play with. Wait a minute, well, what is the bigger picture here? What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
So that's the approach I would
That's the
articulate.
mindset, and the sort of the tactical behavior behind the mindset is, okay, I'm passionate about sustainability. So I'm only going to be on the lookout for startups within sustainability. And then even if I'm going to pick one because of whatever, the founders or the idea or the market fit or the kind of potential return, it's not just the return as in the exit or whatever it is that I need to get from a monetary perspective, but also the learning. So I keep my hands on the pulse to learn from everything that's happening day in, day out. And then whatever happens, I'm going to feed it back to the mothership, like you said, and that can never be nothing. Wow, okay.
Well, the engagement, the senior executive, is important because that's the supervision, oversight, not micromanagement, don't get me wrong, but just making sure that with that oversight, they're increasing the chances of success.
Of course. And obviously any sane, founder would love to have that sort of access to someone with that experience, whatever it is, because, I know my stuff, yes, but I don't know, go-to-market techniques. I don't know, how to manage finances in the most efficient way. I don't know hiring and firing in the way corporates do. So those are invaluable learnings that if I'm being offered those, I should just, hold on to them.
Well, we worked with some of the startups once, and just giving them advice on contracts.
Yes,
was super
for example,
important.
100%. I mean, the other day I was just reading this article and they said one of the biggest challenges for startups is contracts and contract negotiations, because usually they're at a disadvantage when they actually sign a contract with a larger corporate because they don't know. Absolutely. So, I mean, what's your vision for this region when it comes to these stuff? With everything that you've mentioned, as Aamer, what's your vision for this region?
I think if you look at all the stakeholders, governments, I think, are doing an incredible job. We're fortunate to be where we are, and we have seen so much happen. I mean, I won't go into last decade, but simply from Expo on. Expo, and then you have COP28 here, and then the Dubai Futures Foundation. I mean, there's so much happening in UAE, in Dubai, that I think we all should be proud of. Then you see in Saudi Arabia, again, the government's doing amazing things from entertainment, sports, in a lot of fields, a lot of areas. PIF is setting up all these businesses, leveraging the local groups. A lot of those governments have a lot of time and space for, for startups, for the young, founders that are coming in. What you would want this region to be known for is its innovation. I think we don't have to go through all the steps that other mature markets have gone through. You can go straight to what is the service standard that is there from a government point of view, from a consumer point of view. We're talking flying taxis coming up, I don't want to say in our lifetime, coming up in the next 12 to 18 months, right?
True.
So to me, there are groundbreaking ideas that are happening here in this part of the world. So this is exciting. When you mentioned Dubai, when you mentioned Saudi, now the UAE and Saudi are on the world map, but everybody's looking at them to be exciting places to be, to visit, to work, to vacation. So, that's what you want every founder, every VC to be looking at, saying, hey, how do I get a piece of that excitement?
Yes.
Am I really looking at an idea that builds on that image? Or am I just trying to come up with another snack or another drink or another XYZ
burger
product?
shop or specialty coffee or...
Because if you think about it from a capital and resources point of view, I would say you're going through an amazing period. I mean, the kind of excitement, all the streets that you've seen in Dubai for the last 20 years are now filled with shops, cafes, office buildings. People are dabbling into many different things. But what's truly groundbreaking? What's a real breakthrough idea? So you want the big companies, global companies, to sort of come in and focus on that. You want the local groups to say, I don't need to be another XYZ, a copy of a global company. What are my unique strengths in this part of the world? How do I leverage that? And how do I build on the image that the countries in this part of the world are projecting? How do I become, I become a piece of that?
I love that. My personal vision is, and I'm working towards that. It's probably achievable, not achievable, because of my own limited resources. Obviously, is a GCC that is not just known for its grand structures, but for its grand ideas. And
well put.
Exactly, and that's my guiding principle in everything I do. Right? It's just okay. So we've made it, and that's no easy feat, because many people try to devalue or kind of reduce. No, you don't do that, right? Because it takes a lot of wisdom and leadership and strategy and execution to reach where we are now, where I can put my phone on a charger in Dubai Mall and leave it and come back and it's still there. That doesn't happen by accident, for sure, right?
True.
And I've studied the national agendas for almost all of the GCC, and the first three priorities is exactly what you mentioned. So innovation, education, and diversification. And that's almost unanimously across all GCCs. And you look at the projects and everything that the governments are doing, it's exactly to follow that. So I'm working with the Ministry of Education here. I worked with the Ministry of Education in Saudi, and you can sense the passion, you can sense the drive, and you can sense the meaning behind it, right? And that kind of lumps all of those governments behind really true goals. I think the one thing that I'm trying to attack is everybody else. Because you can't expect the government to create another app. You can't expect the government to create another product. This is not how governments work. Governments provide facilities, transportation, healthcare, education, the things that, safety, the things that makes a country worth living, and a lifestyle of that country and the economy behind it is just fair and prosperous for everyone. But then everybody else, right? There's a, and I don't know, I think I'm being here a bit wrong, maybe, but there's a large element of performative and decorative PR behind the word innovation without really going into the meaning behind it. What do you feel about that?
See, broader definition of innovation is that you're going after new products, new services, new processes, new business model for your customer that add value to your business. In the business context, that's how you would look at it.
Clear and simple.
From ideation to scale up.
A novelty that then turns into a product that people are willing to pay money because it adds value to them. Clear.
And I'll speak in sort of the FMCG context.
Yes.
If your supermarkets are full of products from Australia to America, where do you go to come up with a truly innovative idea? To say, I'm going to leapfrog all these other, so competition plays important. So makes it something very difficult to do. Then there is the culture of news. How do I get news? By calling everything innovation, right? And just making a big song and dance. But if you focus on, so let's talk about the stakeholders. You talked about government playing its role. Now, who's left? You've got corporates. Within corporates, you have global MNCs as well as regional or local groups. Then you have startups, and academia. You can say they play.
We'll come to that in a minute. Yeah.
Do that. So government's playing their role. Corporations, global corporations, have an innovation strategy. They're looking at globally, and through their R&D investments, they have hubs spread throughout the world, some in the Middle East.
Yes.
They're innovating in their core space but they have a very high hurdle rate because they already have a specific amount of growth that they need to deliver for the street. They need to have a certain amount of margins they need to deliver. So their barrier is, I've got a high barrier to overcome.
And the region specifically is not a priority from that perspective, isn't it?
But they can piggyback on that, right? So the region can piggyback on a truly innovative idea that has worked elsewhere, and you can be a fast follower. You can bring it into this part of the world, and you can say, hey, however you define innovation in new product or services, I can can bring it
So
here.
that's the multinational.
That's the multinationals.
Right.
I think local groups.
Yes. Family businesses, local corporates. Yeah.
So historically, they've gotten into a lot of businesses, legacy businesses, for a variety of reasons. I do see a change now. Again, in my limited discussions with some of them, I do see them looking at all the businesses they have and trying to figure out where do we want to focus for the next 5 years or 10 years or so. So which ones do we want to perhaps divest or downplay?
Yeah.
Where do we want to enter more, or where we want to go big? So there's a big idea of rearranging the portfolio in a way that it aligns with their priorities, aligns with the country's priorities. So I think a lot of them are trying to focus on
It's
that.
happening.
For the rest, I would say, if they're not already doing that, have a very strong link of innovation with your strategy. So again, every group, every company got a vision, mission, set of strategic priorities.
Yes.
Where does innovation fit into the strategic priority? If it doesn't fit in, then it's not innovation, it's somebody's hobby, because you're not connecting the dots between what I'm really innovating versus what my strategic priority is.
Because
Right?
it's trendy, right?
Yeah, and is it leveraging all the competitive advantages that you built in?
Yes.
Because all these groups obviously got to a certain size and scale because they're inherently very good at certain things.
True.
So how is that innovation going to piggyback on those strengths?
And utilize, yeah.
So to me, that's the strong link to strategy. And then you get into, are you putting the right resources behind? Are you, is the right focus there? Do you have the right culture, innovation culture? We can talk about that in a minute. Do you have the right incentives? Because at the end of the day, you may be chasing innovation, but you still have a core business to deliver.
Yes.
So how do you make sure that you can be ambidextrous on this, focus on core, but grow your innovation without losing momentum on any of those? So to me, I think, again, I can't speak for all of them, but there's a lot to unpack for each company, and I'm sure they're doing that already. And if not, then to me, this is where they should be looking at is what is my, now, you can have an innovation strategy, but not innovation culture.
Yes. Please expand, please, because this is my field of research and I see it day in, day out. And okay, I'll tell a small story. For example, the other day, a CEO came to me and he said, Aamer, I need to understand, there's not enough innovation happening, although it's everywhere. We have leaflets in elevators. We have, people coming and doing trainings. We have design thinking workshops. Like, okay, so when I did the kind of initial sort of exploration and data collection, it turned out that it's because of him as a leader. So his leadership style is more on the risk aversion, lack of empowerment, control, central authority, you name it. Although he is a very people's person, so he treats the company like his family, so he almost never fires anyone, no matter how much their lack performance is, they send them on training. So it's not about of being megalomaniac, like I'm the boss. So no, it's not that. It's just that, like he said,
very caring person.
Very caring, exactly. And that's probably rhymes with the culture of us as a region, right? We have this human connection with people. But still, he doesn't do that. Now, when I presented the findings to him, and it was very triangulated, sort of from qualitative and quantitative, and I showed him the kind of the snapshot of the culture of the organization, how it's just because of direct correlation of his own leadership style, he rejected everything. And he built this stone walls, and actually he didn't want to go ahead.
You have some amazing personalities in this part of the world. Look, the way I would do that is separate the individual, the CEO, from the rest of the culture for now. I mean, we can come back and put it together and say, how do you make sure that when you talk innovation, the people, the employees in your company are not looking at 5 people in the corner to say, yeah, they're responsible for innovation. How do you, if you have 1,000 employees, how do those 1,000 employees collectively own the responsibility for innovation?
As a process.
As a success story.
Yes.
Because they're also being incentivized to do that now.
Because incentive drives behavior, right?
So then you start to bring innovation in every aspect of your strategy. So, for example, I'll give you 2 examples.
Right.
How do you get the whole set of employees involved? Well, you ask them for innovation ideas, not just ideas on a piece of paper that they submit or send you an email, But essentially, you're incentivizing them to say, I'm going to encourage you to form small teams, work on an idea that you think we should be looking at that is going to either grow revenues or transform costs or create new environment or new packages or new products or go into new space.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you time to work on it. And we'll go through stage gate process where at the end of 6 months, you're going to present, the top 5 ideas get presented to CEOs. Now, it's often people who are really at the ground level, who really understand the challenges and opportunities, right? So imagine if you're empowering them to say, I'm going to actually reward you for coming up with an idea that helps me grow or helps me cut costs.
That's an endless supply of ideas, right?
Endless supply of ideas. And you have the right people working through that.
True.
So take them through stage gate process. So then you filter down to top 5 ideas and you can say, hey, all 5 are good enough, but top 3 get this,
depending
the other
on
2
this
get
priority,
that. Yeah, exactly. So now you have unleashed this culture of innovation throughout the organization. But don't just stop there. Then the second thing you do is every development program. Now, I learned that 70% of your learning happens on the job. Only 10% happens in the classroom.
True.
The other 20 is coaching and mentoring, right? So imagine if the solution is I'm going to send somebody on a course. Chances are in 4 weeks' time, they'll probably remember 20% of what they learned, right? And as time goes on, it would be like, it was a great trip. So how
LinkedIn photos, right?
So if you work with the right people to say, I'm actually going to create an in-house program or work with the university, but there's an innovation leg to it. So many years ago, I was part of a global task force where we actually were trying to solve the problem of innovation. It was speed to market. We worked, all in different parts of the world. We worked together and we ultimately ended up presenting our findings to CEO. But it was not in isolation. It was part of a learning program where we learn about strategy, we learn about case studies, we learn about experiential learning. Exactly.
Wow.
So that way you retain what you worked on, right? So now you've got a program that involves all the employees. You got a program that are your high performers, people that you are putting through various training and development. You're bringing a focused experiential learning. You have an incentive system in place. You have a robust set of scorecard. And more importantly, you're incentivizing the front line because they're the ones who have to sell. Again, in the FMCG context, they're the ones who have to sell and they have to do that despite their core business, which is just as important. So you're giving them the right incentives. Now, everybody has a leg in making this innovation a success. And remember, the starting point for all of this has to be your killer insight, right? Because if you're not solving somebody's problem, it's dead on arrival.
It's nice invention, right? There's an invention and there's innovation. So the idea is, bringing.
So how do you do this systematically, company by company, organization by organization, to become more innovative?
Exactly, and that's the question I think that every leader has to ask. But I need to circle back to the earlier point because leadership and culture are 2 faces of the same coin. So what you described now is the perfect textbook culture of innovation within organizations that you go to any successful organization. And by the way, innovation is tightly related to growth, performance, and success. There's no doubt about that. You ask anyone who knows anything about the professional world, he tells you innovation is success, and that's why it's hyped and it's sort of trendy. But then action is different. And then it comes back to leadership, and it's all about leadership. And leadership create that culture. And this is another company that I've also consulted with. They have no shortage of events, activities, systems, literally systems, applications, processes that actually collect ideas. And they have all these rewards of the best idea this, the best idea that, and people get hyped up for a week. And then everything goes back. So when I did the interviews with the people from that organization, just to kind of get the learnings, everybody knew that innovation is a core principle within the organization. But their number one, almost everyone had the same line. They're like, and then what? I've had, I think, 13 or 17 interviews from that organization with leadership and middle management. Everybody said that, we can. I mean, there's no problem. There is psychological safety to actually voice out your opinions and ideas. And there's no shortage of that. Like you said, if you actually create that psychological safe environment, people will come up with all sorts of brilliant ideas, especially the frontliners and the people on the floor. But then if it goes nowhere, they'll be like, And then people are like, what's the point? I'm not going to. And that's the thing. And then what? So what do you think?
Well, if there's a say-do gap, right?
Yes.
Especially with the leader. Remember, you have to, as in your example, you've done it, you've isolated, and you took the person through. But you have to understand, as a leader, you live in this, what is this, fishbowl, right? So everybody's observing everything you say, everything you do is being discussed and is being dissected and is being, look for clues on how does he think.
Is there congruence or not, right?
Because then, look, we all admire our leaders, and we all want to be like them,
100%.
and we all want to emulate them, right? So to me, the best leaders that I learned from, the leaders who ask great questions, because it's not they gave you answer, but they gave you these questions that made you think, right? So now, if you're living in this fishbowl where the whole organization is watching, anything that you say and don't follow through just gets blown out of proportion.
Yes.
And if you do that again and again and again, people will stop listening.
Yes.
Because they'll say, well, that's a corporate speak, right? You're saying that, but you don't really mean it. You don't really live it. So how do you make sure that the say-do gap is minimal?
Yes.
And how are you more transparent in some of the decision making? You're not going to go to the town hall and explain all your decisions, but the reality is, if you know the pulse of the organization and the 2 or 3 big questions that that are on their mind, you proactively address those in the town hall, and you encourage people to ask questions. So one of those questions could be, hey, you guys talk about innovation a lot, but the last 5 innovations were dead on arrival, and you still want us to do X, Y, Z, but what are you doing to fix the fundamental issue of why these innovations are not success? Now, you as a leader need to stand up and
take leadership,
hold yourself accountable, right? And be able to not make excuses, but to say, what are we learning? What are we gaining? And what is it that we got wrong that we now need to address it in future innovation?
And separate between explanation and justification, right?
And link it to the role you play. At the end of the day, you close the loop by saying, and where I need your help is to make sure if you're on the production line or if you're on the sales line, sales team, this is where I need your help. So to me, this constant closed loop communication is super important. Now, again, we all have come across leaders who I know, I got it, problem is not me, problem is everyone else, right? But that's why nobody is a leader for life.
That's my qualification for projects. If I qualify a project by someone who arrived, like one of my friends say, or who's a know-it-all, then obviously. And I love what you said about asking questions, because not all questions have answers, but questions open a mind. A statement closes it. Okay, so let me kind of end with a small kind of discussion on academia, because you touched on this, and that's a topic near and dear to my heart. And I know that in this part of the world, 100% hands down, we're really, so on the innovation race, we're lagging behind. According to objective metrics, we're lagging behind. Dubai and the UAE is at the forefront of the region at, I think, 32 or 35, and that's based on number of technology sophistication, number of publications, number of IP, whatever it is. There are like 6 or 7 objective metrics. We're lagging behind, and there's no question about that. But then when it comes to academia, especially research output that actually connects with industry and sort of feeds into industry, the number 1 university in the region is 202 worldwide. Now, that's also based on really different metrics. I've gone into that, and it makes sense, right? I'm not this is not my field of research, but if you read it, you understand that, it makes sense. And then you look at the ground pragmatically, and it's that makes sense. Where's the last industry academia relationship that actually sparked this brilliant idea that then turned into an innovation that changed paradigms in our economy? Almost never existent. Whereas if you go to Tesla, it has probably 100 of those contracts with universities that develop its own battery systems, that develop its own electrical car, and so on and so forth. And Google is the same thing, and everything else. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I did look through the Global Innovation Index. UAE is 32, and as you said, out of the 7 parameters, we're lagging behind. Inputs, we're amongst top 20. Outputs, we're 50 something, right? So if you blended average is 32. And yes, the areas we are suffering are all the intangibles and creative and knowledge and technology outputs, patents, industrial design, things like that. I think I looked at that and I actually saw that as a glass half full.
Okay.
Because I think that a lot of things the government is doing that's landing well. In lots of those areas, we're number 1, number 2, 100%. Top 10, top 15.
Remember, governments we're not lacking.
Right.
Yeah.
I think even some of those disconnects, for example, I mean, my kids grew up in Dubai. Mm-hmm. They finished their schooling, and then, like everyone else, they went abroad to study.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They went to college. Right there,
that's a bump.
Linkage from high school to college, you're allowing some of your best minds to leave your shores. Right, and for all kinds of reasons, some of those reasons have been addressed now.
That's reality.
That's reality.
Yeah.
But so that's one. Now I'm fortunate that my daughter has now come back, and she's actually plugged into some of the things that UAE is doing, government is doing, and she's what she learned in the U.S. and she studied and she worked at Google. She's now here playing an important role. So that's an example of somebody who's finished their high school education, now coming back and contributing to that technology knowledge space here. But I'm sure those examples are few.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because it's not sustainable. You can't send everyone and then come back.
So because there's some amazing universities throughout the world, and this hasn't been a huge priority in the past, where how do you retain people graduating from high school to to onshore here, universities. So we've got some very good universities, but you said they struggle, right? But imagine if you added more universities and you increase the caliber of the teachers, and you give students the incentive to not go abroad but stay here, because education is not cheap anywhere in the world, right? So again, through right incentives, how do I retain more of those students onshore? Then I think the second bump that comes in is when these college graduates come out, look for a job. Now, US, huge market.
Yes. Economy is just crazy.
And then, but here, what you have is, one of the things I think we're not good at is hiring kids out of college. So the companies in general, I mean, you see in India, in Egypt, in Pakistan, in Saudi, in the large population markets, there's actually companies work directly with the universities, and they have almost a feeder program, management trainees, whatever the definition is for the entry level graduates coming in that are going straight from colleges to workplace. There, it gives those workplaces an opportunity to work with the universities to either shape the curriculum a certain way, have certain programs, and just have the academia work partnership to make sure that those students land well. And then they're incorporated. UAE by default is a melting pot. I've got lots of expats from lots of different parts of the world. We're good in poaching talent versus developing talent.
Because we don't need to, right? Because it's a talent magnet. If I can get someone who's an expert for half the money, why not?
Amazing talent available, and from very good countries, very good programs. So to me, I think that's the other bump, that you lose the opportunity to link academia with university. If using American University in Sharjah, for example, great school, great program, you heard a lot of good things. But if the local population of the corporations are not actively recruiting, interviewing, doing internships, and those linkages are not there, then you don't have an opportunity to expand that conversation. I think that's the other area we can look at.
There are two elements here very quickly. So the first one is, like you said, the cadre, the kind of talent export, the talent manufacturing engine, the factory, which is the university, and how it just feeds into the economy vis-a-vis the corporates and the organizations. And that's 100%, I agree with you. I mean, my daughter, she's now 15, she's doing her IGCSEs, and I can't think of any university here that I would feel it would give her and equip her with the necessary skill sets to allow her to kind of compete. Sadly, yeah, hopefully within the next few years it'll be different, but yeah, I share that with you. But the other angle, which is, again, it's the egg and the chicken, right? The other angle is, other than talent manufacturing or talent production. So universities are the hubs for R&D, are the hubs for research, for trying things, to test things that probably will materialize 20 years from now, 10 years from now.
Correct.
Industry in this part of the world is not leveraging that to the point, well, not even a fraction of how it is being leveraged everywhere in the world. I mean, there's a reason why Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, right? I mean, it's around it is all of those universities, similar places around the world. Except here, you have lots of universities. But then I have a couple of friends who are heads of university, presidents of universities here, and when I talk to them, they blame industry. And I have a couple of CEOs that also, when I talk to them, is like, oh no, because the university is just, doesn't add value to me, so why should I do it? So there's this tension between both of those groups of people that I think no one is addressing well.
Yeah, and spot on. I think we are, as corporate, as family groups, we're less reliant on local universities, because if you can get, pick a university from the US or yes. Europe, even Australia, South Africa, you're getting great talent from there as well. You have access to that kind of talent at the same cost as a local graduate from AUS, AUB, or any other regional university, AUD as well. So you're going to say, okay, I've got this pool to choose from, and the best candidate wins, and so versus I'm going to dedicate my resources and work closely with University X to make sure that I'm attracting future talent that understands this part of the world and that is able to contribute from the day they land in the organization, right? So that requires to be much higher in the maturity curve as an organization. Again, so now you get into how strong are some of these human resources functions of the local group who are looking at not just the entry level, but if a talent is mobile, what is your retention level? So if you're saying the value comes from us being able to attract the best talent, but retain them in our organization for at least 5 years, so then we can grow them into right positions because they're Arabic speakers, they understand this part of the culture, and they work well in this organization versus always bringing somebody in from a different culture and then giving them the cultural sensitivity training, whatever else that comes with it. So where are they on that maturity curve? Are they ready to embrace and make a deeper commitment, to the local universities? As some of the global MNCs, they have, in the countries they operate in, they have identified universities that they work with in those countries to attract talent. So to me, it's and that's why I'm optimistic, because I think we are getting there. Things are getting better, and the study that you quoted, I think there is a lag between input and output.
Yes.
So to me, we will continue to see UAE and Saudi and some of the other move up.
Exactly.
Now, how soon? How fast?
That's organic and it's very difficult. Exactly. No, I agree with you. And if you look at the national agendas, especially in the UAE and Saudi, but also Qatar, Oman, to a large degree Bahrain and Kuwait as well, these are in the national agendas of 2030 and 2031. And there are activities that are being done. I haven't yet explored it much, and that's why I'm asking, lots of people at, with your caliber to understand, okay, what do you see? Because you mentioned something at the very beginning, and probably we'll close with that, which is the meaning, the purpose, the intention, and you're at your CEO level. Okay, so I need to make an impact. Great. Okay, what type of impact? I want to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Great. How do we know? How do you know? Between yourself and your heart of hearts, how do you know that this is genuine? Okay, are you actually going out and making things exactly like you said, going to local universities? I mean, just a quick tangent. I was doing a workshop with the leadership here in Dubai with a government entity, and most of the people that were sitting there were senior leadership, and we were just doing moderating, sort of facilitating this discussion. And an idea came up, and they're like, okay, where do we get this and that? And one person who was very, very senior is like, yeah, I have connections in Harvard. So that triggered me. Honestly, I shouldn't have responded, but that triggered me, right? I looked at him and was like, okay, I have a question for you. What made you first think of Harvard and not anybody else in this region locally? Like, I don't mind that. Like, I don't care. Like, let's put in the facts and let's look at everything. And then, the conclusion is, you know what? It's only Harvard. Fine. Because the intention is to actually be truthful and with merit to the result, right? So that's fine. But the first thing that you think of is that's a red flag for me. And he couldn't answer. And eventually, I came up to know that he was in Harvard. Right? He's in Harvard.
Really? Yeah.
That's what he knows. So, I don't think there's a clear answer to that. But that's to go back to the purpose and meaning, if you truly think that you can make an impact, are you? And how do you know?
In a single culture environment, it becomes easier. Saudi, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Pakistan, you come out of that and you want to grow Pakistani talent in that market. You want to give them the opportunities. You want to have internships. You want to do that. When you come to, so I think this is a UAE specific issue.
So demographics here is
demographics is unique, right? So in a way, you have to be able to, and how most people define that as a local talent.
Yeah.
Localization, Emirati here, Saudi there, and you say, how do we grow that cohort? Yes. How do we give them disproportional opportunities to grow and thrive in the organization? They do a great job in the government and semi-government sectors, but in the corporate world, perhaps they're not getting as many opportunities. It's changing now. I think here, you have to again start with what is your talent strategy. Again, you come out and say, if I'm in Saudi, I'm very clear what is my talent strategy, what are the universities I'm going to partner with, where am I going for my talent, which is entry level, what am I promoting from an industrialization point of view with universities, from a sustainability point of view. In UAE, I've not seen enough of that. Yeah. And I think it's because you don't have that. I can get anyone from anywhere. Yeah. So if I'm spending $1 investment in University X in Sharjah or in Dubai, what is my return?
Right.
So I think I don't want to make it down to finance, but I think from a
free market is that to a large degree.
From a return on investment point of view, I think more investment going in is how do I have close contacts with the right executive search company so I can get to the best talent that's coming in on this part of the world, right? Versus locally, and also the state of the business is very different. You don't have those large industrial operations to some extent where you need
mostly sales and
you need 30, 40, 50 people coming in every year to grow. So I think it requires a dialogue. It requires a dialogue between the companies and the universities.
And very bespoke, very local. Yeah.
And even the training development programs, right? Rather than going abroad, how did the universities here come up with the right strategy programs, communication programs, localized that cater to the 90 nationalities that are here, if not more.
With an intention of actually making sure that we retain the benefit to this country and to this economy and to this society and the region at large. Wow, okay. I'll tell you what, I can go on forever, but I'll tell you what, what's your workout today? You said you're going to do the workout in the afternoon.
Today is cardio.
Cardio, so what is cardio to you?
I'll do between elliptical and treadmill.
You have the building gym.
Building gym, yeah.
Aamer building gyms are really sophisticated. Yeah. Okay, and where do you? Okay, so that's I love asking these questions because I think about it all the time. Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? Yeah. So when you're, let's say, 65 or 67, what do you see yourself? Is it clear?
I think one of the things I would want to be known for is somebody who helped. Again, there is a old Winston Churchill saying, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but basically you earn a living, but you give to make a life, right? So I want to make a life How do you make a life? Is by giving. How do you give? You give your time, you give your resources, you give your advice, you give whatever somebody is looking for within reason to help them grow and thrive, right? So you want to be known for giving versus taking.
I think you should do more podcasts then.